people no longer bound by their non-disclosure agreements. What can you now disclose? My best friend worked at a roadside attraction near Chattanooga, Tennessee, called Ruby Falls. There's something else called Ruby Falls elsewhere in the country. It's supposedly a waterfall inside a cave. Of course, the trail to the cave is redone with all sorts of rock brought in from around the world. I think they've owned up to that part now. But the waterfall itself is barely a trickle naturally, and then only in the wetter season. They've run a pipe up there to supplement the falls, hidden by cracks and crevices and cemented over, and powered by a pump off to the side, which you can't hear when the water is splashing down from 100 feet overhead. It's 99% from the city of Chattanooga, or maybe Lookout Mountain, municipal water supply. Of course, with such a wet area, old electrical wires going back to the Great Depression, and 300 feet underground, it sputters, or shorts out, and stops every now and then. The first rule in the falls room is make everybody leave immediately if the power goes out, not for safety, but because the fable agreed upon will be shown as fake. The book you're reading might only be a bestseller because the author had enough money to buy thousands and thousands of copies, have them shipped to a warehouse for storage, and eventually destroyed. Always wondered how shitty books were on the NYTBSL and who was buying them. Given the fact that a book I'm reading right now is labeled as a bestseller, reads like a 6th grader wrote it, I wouldn't be surprised. I worked at a small bakery in New York City when I was younger. Every morning the bakery would take their day-old cupcakes and deliver them to a tour company that did Sex and the City tours. The tour company would pass our cupcakes off as cupcakes from Magnolia and significantly much more popular bakery. I went on that tour with my ex-wife and ate one of those cupcakes. Edit. The cupcake was pretty disappointing. Definitely tasted stale. After the cupcake, the tour took us to some swanky little underground bar where they fed us cosmopolitan martinis, and then it ended at a dildo store. They set us up for a good time. When I was fired from Auntie Anne's in 2010, I signed a 10-year non-compete/NDA contract, promising not to detail the baking secrets or work for another pretzel establishment. Well, that ended this year, so now I can run out and start a pretzel store, because the secret I was keeping was making pretzels literally requires 2 products, one of them being water and the other a large bag of pretzel meal/dust/powder. Quite literally anyone with $2,500 can start a pretzel stand and make perfectly fine pretzels. It's not difficult whatsoever. Edit. I signed the letter when I was hired, but I got a copy with my termination letter. Well, you forgot to say what the secret browning agent is that all the pretzels get dipped into before they go on the sheet and into the oven. It's baking soda and water. Mystery solved. Also lemonade too. 4. 8. Refrigerate. Better make peace, because Auntie Anne is sending their assassins. I used to work for a large gas station chain. I worked at its warehouse, where it creates a lot of the donuts. The room was really hot, so we were always sweating. There's some machines where the donuts get glazed in chocolate. They're these small machines, they look almost like a BBQ grill. They always wanted us to be super fast glazing the donuts. Working in a hot room and working at super fast speeds, it was natural for a lot of people's sweat to just drip in the chocolate underneath us. Never eat the chocolate donuts from a gas station. Honestly, if the worst thing in those donuts is human sweat, I'm impressed. So that's why I enjoy gas station donuts. You know, NDAs are only good if you have the money to sue. Worked with a company that didn't pay me, so I told them their NDA didn't apply. They threatened to sue. My response: you can't even afford to pay me, you sure as hell can't afford to sue. They also don't extend to keeping you from reporting illegal activity to the justice system. Some places may try to make people believe that, and may even try to imply it in the NDA, but it has no legal standing. McDonald's made me sign a NDA regarding a robbery that took place during a graveyard shift. They made me take a fucking polygraph test because they thought my ex and I were involved due to the simple fact that I had stopped by that day to pick up some documents. I was the manager. I had business to do. Fuck you, McMidder. Edit. Thanks for the silver. 3. Edit 2. There are many questions. Some wonder if I made this up. Request details or explanations. I'll give some extra context and I'll head out. I was around 19 to 20 years old. This was almost a decade ago. I was pretty naive then. By the time I realized this might have been illegal, I mentioned to a co-manager, and she advised me to not bring it up again as to not involve myself in trouble or damage my future job prospects. I worked at a franchise located in a rural area with an almost entire Latino population, where everyone knows each other. I took home some of the weekly schedules and production projections for highlighting. They would make me do this highlighting shit weekly. The store manager in charge would allow me to do this on a weekly basis. The area supervisor called to tell me I'd have to take a polygraph test. He mentioned that I could decline taking the polygraph test, but I'd be taken off the schedule and I wouldn't be trusted again. The police showed up to the restaurant, picked me up, held me at the investigation building for around 8 hours, and then they sent me home. When I passed the polygraph test, the area supervisor called again to mention that he appreciated that I took the polygraph, glad to hear I passed, and that he would always have my back. I roll. I left the job at McDonald's in 2014. At least it makes for a story to tell. Level 2 directly 4.8k points 4 days ago. Hell, the first day of my first job was at a Hardee's. We were robbed. It was really obvious my manager had set it up as there was over $1,000 in my register and she wouldn't swap out the till. Then when the robber was running off she yells out, "Wait, you forgot this," and gets the $50 and $100 bills from under the drawer. Then pretended to faint. After the police interviewed us they just left. She expected me to finish my shift and I just laughed and walked out, never to return. It's not an NDA, it's a secrecy agreement with Dodd that elapsed after 25 years. I worked as a programmer for the US Air Force on the global USAF budget in 1979 through early 1981. There was a period of time after Reagan became a leading candidate, but before he won the election or took office. Jimmy Carter was a lame duck president, and many senior officers really hated him. During this time, the USAF had flown the B-1. Not the B-1A, not the B-1B, this was when it was just the B-1. People had spent a significant portion of their careers working on delivering the B-1 program. They really believed in the B-1 as a strategic long-range supersonic bomber. Jimmy Carter hated the B-1. He viewed it as a wasteful, unnecessary, bloated program designed to keep the builders afloat at the expense of the taxpayer. He had cancelled the project in something like 77. But a couple flying examples were available, but never to see service. Reagan loved the B-1. It was everything he loved about our military programs. Fast, sexy, high-tech, and better than anything the Soviets had. All of that being said, here's what happened. Jimmy Carter gave explicit orders that the only two, not certain, B-1s currently flying be broken up into parts, the program completely cancelled, the engineering materials be archived at the Pentagon, and all funding ended. He wanted direct evidence sent to him that this had happened, in the form of pictures of the broken up aircraft. Ronald Reagan was informed of this order by sources in our organization. Reagan let it be known that Carter's order was absolutely not to be followed under any circumstances. Now, where do I come in? I was just this guy working on the AF budget. It was a top secret clearance, mainly because any analyst could correlate money to named projects, both globally and on bases. So one day I'm going over daily reports and I see this massive new expenditure for, I think, Wright-Patterson. It's not in the approved project list. It's not in the unapproved project list. So clearly, it has not gone up to Congress. Yet, the money is actually in the dispersal. So I go to my boss, and I point it out. It doesn't belong there, so obviously it's a mistake. He agrees, and we reverse it. A couple of days later, all hell breaks loose when a general officer I had never seen before comes rampaging through the office demanding to know who shorted his funding. Now, at this point we get hauled into a room, sword to secrecy, and told to fund this maintenance project. What was the project? Pay a huge team of contractors to very carefully disassemble one of the B-1s, drag in parts from other aircraft, show it being crushed, and send pics to Carter. Meanwhile, reassemble the plane and hide both of them inside black hangars. And that was why Reagan was able to have the program restarted literally within days of taking office. The program was fully back online in 1981. I signed an NDA after negotiating a six-figure settlement with my mortgage lender. Back in 2013, the bank illegally sold my home while I was living there and making monthly payments. I discovered this when new owners evicted me and my 3 kids. At the time, I thought someone was trying to steal my identity, etc. I spent the next 2 years writing legal documents and had to represent myself in court. The bank owned every legit legal firm I contacted. Also, the first lawyer I hired took my last $7,000 and was promptly disbarred for misconduct with previous cases. I had no money, no home, but I had a laptop, printer, and access to the county court law library. We were about a week away from selecting a jury when we came to a settlement agreement. In the end, each of my kids, now in their 20s, got an inexpensive new car and I live at the beach. Which bank, you ask? I can't tell you the name, but might I suggest that it rhymes with case. They settled because they were worried that if the case went to trial, it would become public. Then, everyone would know for certain that they had lied, cheated and swindled to steal homes from hard-working people. The bank would lose when no one took out new loans with them. Edit. I received a posting on my front door. I went to the eviction court and lost because technically the new owners paid for my house. I was given 7 days to move all my stuff, had lived there 13 years, or face the sheriff. I had 3 kids. I didn't want the drama of handcuffs. So we packed and moved, then sought relief through the court system. The bank in question did something similar to my parents in the early 2000s. Despite medical hardships, my parents managed to make all their mortgage payments on time, every time. About 2003 the bank notified them they were foreclosing on the home due to 6 missed payments. My parents had copies of the checks they sent to the bank showing they made the payments and bank records showing the checks cleared their account. The bank still denied ever getting the payments and pushed for the foreclosure. This went on from the start of 2003 till about October, when my parents were so exhausted from fighting they decided to sell. They sold my childhood home to an investor for just above what they owed on it. The bank tried to stop the process mid-closing by upping the cost on the investor, but he complied because he could see what was happening and paid in full. He gave my parents the option of staying and renting for a lower cost from him, but they refused and moved out the day after Christmas. I scolded them for not taking it to a lawyer and fighting it out, but now that I'm older I completely understand how exhausting it is to fight for something against a giant who holds all the. My graphic designer best friend won my town's Design the Centennial logo contest, despite having never set foot in the town. I worked for the radio station and just did an interview with one of the organizers where he lamented that there weren't very many entries. So I called my friend and said, "Want in on this?" He said, "Sure." As he lived on the other side of the country at the time, I spent the next day texting him photos of the town for inspiration. Anyway, when he won, and they found out he was a professional graphic designer who lived on the other side of the country, they made him and me sign NDAs, because the town was afraid people would think they brought in a ringer. Edit. Wow, this kind of blew up, so let me answer some of the more common questions being brought up. What's a ringer? A ringer is professional who's brought into a contest in order to guarantee favored results. Why did I have to sign the NDA? Well, they unveiled the logo at a great big ceremony where they presented the prize money. I think it was a couple $100, and since my friend lived on the other side of the country, he asked if I could accept on his behalf. I wound up not going because we were broadcasting from another event that day, so the mayor accepted on his behalf. Where is this? Canada. A small town in Alberta. That's all I'm comfortable sharing. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe.